Yes, sorry.
Good afternoon. My name is James Lake. I'm the communications representative for MDOT's North Region. Welcome to our virtual public meeting to discuss 2021 Road and Bridge Improvement Project on M33 in Mio. I apologize to anyone who logged in at 2 o'clock. We had a scheduling confusion. The meeting was set to begin at 3 o'clock. The meeting notice said 2 o'clock. So apologies to anyone who logged in and wasn't able to view the meeting. We are going to go ahead and give a presentation about the project that will be recorded and that will be available for viewing later. I'd like to introduce Garrett Daw, our Alpena Transportation Service Center manager, who will be giving the main presentation today, and he will also introduce other MDOT staff on the call today.
Thank you, James. As James said, my name is Garrett Daw. I am the manager of MDOT's Alpena Transportation Service Center, and our service center covers essentially the northeastern part of Lower Michigan, a 7-county area. At the southerly end, starting kind of in the West Branch and Tawas areas, and then heading up northerly to Presque County with Rogers City, Onaway, and then all points in between, including Oscoda County and the Mio area. Other MDOTers on the call today include James Lake, who you just heard from, our region communications representative. Also, we have Monica Monsma, who's in our environmental section in Lansing, doing some of the moderating kind of behind the scenes. Also from the Transportation Service Center in Alpena, we have Kevin Shadig on the line, who is our TSC operations engineer and the project manager for the road portion of this project that we're going to be discussing today. And then we also have Christine O'Neill, who is our administrative support at the TSC. So you may be hearing from any one of us at any point during this presentation, but primarily you'll probably be going to hearing from me. So I'll go up. So I have a few announcements before we get into the presentation. Just some housekeeping items. If you need closed captioning, click on the settings icon, which looks like a gear and is located in the upper right corner of your screen. We certainly welcome any questions or comments for those that may be listening. You can ask those questions and share your comments using the chat function, which is located on the right of your screen. After the presentation, we will answer those questions and respond to comments. If there is a question that is asked that we don't know an immediate answer to, we will follow up with an email response to all attendees later next week. And then if anyone is listening to this after the fact or is listening to it now and is not comfortable asking a question in the chat, you can always contact us personally at MDOT. My email address, which will be listed in the chat box, is daweg@michigan.gov. And the phone number for the TSC is 989-356-2231. And that will probably take you to an answering machine because of the coronavirus situation, but we are checking that regularly and someone will get back to you promptly. We also have a link to Microsoft Teams help in the chat box if you need assistance. You will also see a SurveyMonkey link. This survey helps us to assess our outreach efforts among those who are affected or interested in this project and is required as part of the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And as has been indicated earlier, we are recording today's meeting and we'll be sharing it on YouTube. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen here and get into the presentation. So James or Monica, could you please verify for me when the presentation pops up?
I see it there now, Garrett.
You do? Okay, I don't see it yet on my end, so I'm just going to wait just a second.
It does not appear to be in the PowerPoint slideshow.
Yep, I had clicked the slideshow and it's currently loading up. So
okay.
We'll just wait here a few seconds until it does. There, do you see it now?
Yes.
Great. So as indicated before, today's presentation is to give some information regarding a 2021 road and bridge improvement project in the Mio area. And again, I'm Garrett Daw, the Alpena TSC manager. So an overview of today's presentation. First and foremost, we'll just go through some of the details of the project work. So the bridge work, we're talking about M33/M72 over the AuSable River. And for the road work, we're talking about M33 from 14th Street, which is at the south end of Mio, northerly to McKinley Road, which is essentially at the north end of Mio and butts up to the project that we completed in 2019 to the north. We'll also go over a summary of our anticipated schedule, and we're going to introduce a lane conversion concept that we would like to include in the project. So again, just to highlight the project location, this is an overview map of the Mio area, and the black line on this map represents the limits of the road work. So as you can see there, 14th Street at the south end, northerly to McKinley Road, and then that red circle there is the AuSable River Bridge at where M33 goes over it. So we're going to start with the bridge work and give a summary of what MDOT's going to be doing on the bridge itself over next year. So, and I will show some pictures of some of these things too, because understood that some folks listening may not understand what some of these terms mean. But we are going to be doing approach work. So this is essentially some concrete slabs on either side of the bridge deck on the road surface, deck joint replacements, railing repair, some slope paving replacement. Slope paving is what we refer to as the essentially those concrete slabs that are underneath the bridges on either end that slope down towards the river. We'll be replacing that on the north side. We'll be painting the bridge underneath to help prevent rusting and deterioration, and we'll also be performing some miscellaneous substructure repairs. While we're working on the bridge, traffic will be maintained on the bridge. So we are not proposing a detour with this project. And I'll get into a little bit more of what that traffic situation will look like. And the estimated construction cost for this bridge work is $870,000. So here's an aerial of the bridge over the AuSable River. So up on your screen is north. So Mio is off to the south, or to the bottom of the screen. These red lines here that I've just brought up represent the deck joints. So if you're familiar with, let's say, the Mackinac Bridge, and you drive over those joints that kind of look like fingers connecting, those are called expansion joints, and they allow the bridge to contract and expand with temperatures without cracking or causing any issues. So these joints will be replaced with the project, along with the approach slabs leading up to the bridge. We don't have slabs there right now, but the reason that we're putting them in is because it helps with especially with heavier vehicles or trucks approaching the bridge. These slabs give them a chance to essentially settle down before they get onto the bridge deck, so that they're not pounding on those joints or on the bridge deck itself. Here's a picture of underneath the bridge, just to give you an idea of some of the things that we'll be doing. Again, we will be repairing this railing as we need to, so the whole thing will not be replaced, but any area that is damaged or deteriorating a little bit more than others will be replaced, or repaired, I should say. We will be painting the beams and other components beneath the bridge in essentially the same color as it is now. Again, that slope paving reference at the north side of the bridge, we will be replacing that, and we'll be putting back what we call heavy riprap, which is really boulders and bigger stones, that kind of thing. And having that instead of the slope paving really helps us with scour around the bridge. So if you picture the water moving along that bridge, it tends to erode less with the heavy riprap versus the slope paving. So that's the reason for this. And then again, some substructure repairs are needed. And then one thing I wanted to show, obviously there is this pathway that goes under the south side of the bridge. Because of the work that we're doing under there, it would not be safe for someone to walk underneath the bridge and through the work area. So we will be closing this path on either end of the bridge during the project. Of course, the path will remain open up to the bridge itself for anyone that's interested in walking along it. So just kind of detailing what the traffic setup will look like during the project. So beginning in late April, and I'll go over the summary of the schedule later, but essentially this will begin in late April, and then through the end of June, you're going to see what we call a single lane closure up top, with traffic being maintained in one of the lanes for both directions and alternated with temporary traffic signals on either end. This is a pretty common setup for a bridge lane closure, and so it's something that probably wouldn't surprise everyone. And then the side of the bridge that is closed would be alternating one side and then the other to facilitate the work. In the river itself, because of some of the work we're doing down there, it will necessitate closing off roughly half of the river stream to boating traffic or other pedestrian type traffic underneath. Obviously, the channel will still be open, and we understand that the majority of river traffic that's getting in around here is getting in just downstream of this location in the DNR park. So hopefully this wouldn't hamper anyone too much. So the river will be open as well as the road. The second stage of the bridge work will be occurring again from the end of June then through mid-July. And all that's really required up top is what we call a shoulder closure, so closing off of the shoulder, which will still allow us to maintain one lane in each direction on the top. So really very minimal impact to traffic from the beginning of July and on. However, because the work that we're doing is underneath and the shoulder closure is essentially to park vehicles, we will still have the river closed part width, allowing traffic through, but not for the whole width of it. And then we will have all of the work done on the bridge and within the river before the canoe marathon weekend, which is the last full weekend in July. So folks that are either paddling in that race or watching it will not have to contend with construction. Moving on to the road work, again, just to reiterate, the limits of the road work is 14th Street at the south end northerly to McKinley Road. We got two different types of road work happening. So in the M33 and M72 intersection area, we actually have concrete pavement there. So what we're doing is we're not replacing the concrete or anything like that. What we are doing is essentially sawing out and resealing all of the concrete joints that you see on the pavement. And we're doing some minor pavement repairs in areas that have deteriorated a little faster than others. For the rest of the road, which is an asphalt pavement, we will be doing what we call a mill and fill or a mill and resurface, where we remove essentially an inch and a half of the top of the pavement and then repave it back in. And we'll be doing that across the entire width of the road, including lanes and shoulders. And then along with that, we will be replacing sidewalk ramps, which is something we're required to do when we're repaving a road as part of the Americans with Disabilities Act. For the road work, traffic will be maintained on the road, again, no detours, and we'll have intermittent lane and shoulder closures to facilitate that work. And an estimated cost for the road work is $935,000. So all in all, between the two projects, we're right around $1.7, $1.8 million. So a substantial investment in the area. So I just wanted to detail a little bit the M33 and M72 concrete intersection. This is an overview. Again, north is up on your screen. So up in that northeast quadrant, this is your Ace Hardware. This is the real estate building. And this is an engineering drawing of the same view of the intersection. So again, up in the northeast quadrant, here's your Ace Hardware. All these pink lines represent every concrete joint that we have within the intersection. So this can give you probably a picture of the scale of work that needs to be done through here. Concrete joint sealing and or sawing and resealing is not a lengthy duration type operation, but given the number of joints here, it's going to be relatively significant. So this gives you an idea of what we're looking at. And then the blue on this drawing is where we're looking at pavement repairs, which is a little bit more substantial than just joints. So how is traffic going to be maintained while we're doing this work right in the intersection? Well, this is what we've come up with. Again, a part width situation. So the orange areas here represent one stage of the construction where we would be working. And then, so as you can see, we would have traffic on M33 pushed over just to one side of the road, still with one lane in each direction maintained. We do have an existing traffic signal in the intersection, but in order to facilitate truck turning movements in this tighter area, we are proposing to turn that signal off and then use portable temporary traffic signals set back a little bit further from the intersection so that traffic is not sitting up too close to it. They're sitting back far enough so that trucks can make their turns. And then the phasing or the operations of the traffic signal would be what we call split phasing. And that is essentially where, let's say, all of northbound traffic would go, including left turns, while southbound and eastbound are stopped. Then once northbound is gone, southbound, all of southbound would go. Then once they're stopped, all of eastbound would go. So it's a three-phase traffic signal cycle, whereas the existing cycle is a two-phase. We're also proposing, in order to keep the number of phases temporarily down, closing off only the outbound portion of this side of the intersection, still allowing traffic to come in and access any businesses or residents that are in this area. But once leaving the area, you would have to go down a block either to the north or south to get onto M33. And again, this intersection work right in the intersection where you'd see this operation, we're probably talking about a couple of weeks, and I'll get into the summary of the schedule in a little bit here. So again, this just kind of shows the other side of the intersection and how traffic would be facilitated. Again, it's pretty much the same situation, just everything is flipped. And I do want to note that not every single lane closure setup that we're going to need is going to be shown here, but this is essentially the strategy that we're using. And all concrete work, not just within the intersection, but within or just to the south and then a little further north of the intersection, we are planning to complete before the Memorial Day weekend. So sidewalk ramp replacements, just to give you an idea of what we're talking about. So when we say sidewalk ramps, we're referring to kind of this area of the sidewalk. We need to make sure these grades are correct and that these curb entrances are constructed in such a manner that someone in a wheelchair or someone who may be visually impaired is able to safely navigate these sidewalk ramps. So these are what we are going to be replacing. The rest of the sidewalk will remain untouched and as it is. And we're only doing this at each cross street. So at driveways, we would not be doing ramps. And then this is just a picture of what we mean by an asphalt mill and resurface. So essentially just milling off that top layer of asphalt and repaving it back in. So in overall, the work schedule here. Again, we're going to start the project as soon as we can in April. So we say late April just to be conservative. It could be a little earlier. And then through the Memorial Day weekend, what you're going to see is that bridge work starting over the AuSable River with one lane open, maintained with a temporary traffic signal. You're going to see the concrete intersection work going on down at M72, and you're going to see some sidewalk ramps being replaced. These are some of the more impactful work types that can start to cause traffic delays. This is why we're starting it right off the bat and being done before Memorial Day weekend on the more intrusive stuff, so that we don't impede traffic too much. After the Memorial Day weekend and then through the what we're saying is June 25th is our current target date. The bridge work would continue as previously indicated, and we would begin asphalt resurfacing. And again, this wouldn't be a situation where it's a constant lane closure for the asphalt resurfacing only when we're out there working. Would we need lane closures under flag control, and then overnight when we're not working, everything would be open again and then closed again the next day as they move on. So again, this is primarily in the month of June. And then the final stage from the July 4th holiday weekend, so everything would be open on July 4th on that heavy traffic weekend. And then after that, through the July 23rd, we'd have that shoulder closure on the bridge with 2 lanes open, 1 in each direction. And then again, completed by July 23rd and ready for the canoe marathon weekend. So the last thing I wanted to talk about that's associated with this project is a lane conversion proposal. So on the left side of your screen, you can see an overview map of the area in question. So M72 going west out towards the high school, or the elementary school for that matter, is at the bottom of your screen, and then going up north to 4th Street, that area. Here's McDonald's, here's Family Fair. This is the area that we're talking about, just an overview of it. And then on the right side here is a street view of that looking north. And as you can see in this picture, what we currently have out there is 1 northbound through lane. And next to it is what we call a center left turn lane. So it's for any traffic in either direction that wants to turn left can get into that lane and use it as a kind of a safe haven to safely make that turn. And then in the southbound direction, we have 2 through lanes. So what we're proposing to do is to change that. So that top drawing there is kind of the situation we have right now with 4 lanes set up. And just please ignore this US 31. This is from a different project, but it's the same fix. So what we're doing is going from this 4-lane situation to a 3-lane situation, still maintaining that center left turn lane, but going only to 1 northbound lane and 1 southbound lane, and then using the rest of that existing pavement width as what we call essentially a shoulder that can be utilized by bicycles. It can be utilized by pedestrians if the sidewalk is not open, say in the winter, if it hasn't been plowed. From what I understand, folks tend to walk out in the road in those situations. This provides them a safe area to do so, and Amish buggies, that kind of thing. Keeps those non-motorized users out of the through lanes. So what are some benefits of this layout versus what we currently have? First of all, it simplifies the roadway operations. You get a more orderly driving pattern through the area. You get less weaving, especially in that southbound direction. Less weaving, lane changing, slowdowns, startups, that kind of thing. It's a much more orderly operation. As I kind of indicated before, it provides a good buffer space between traffic lanes, and there is a sidewalk on the southbound side, so you're going to increase that space between vehicles and folks that are walking. And then obviously it provides a dedicated area then for those bicyclists or other non-motorized users that don't want to use the sidewalk, or that are not allowed to use the sidewalk and have to be in the roadway. It provides them that dedicated area. It also results in an improved turning radius for right turning trucks and campers and that kind of thing. So if you think about the southbound direction, anyone turning right, say into the Family Fair, they're right up against the curb currently, and making that turn can be rather difficult at times. By doing the lane conversion, you move the edge line further away from the curb and give them a little bit more room to better make that turn, and in many cases get off the roadway a little bit quicker, so they're not holding folks up behind them. Again, an overview kind of from the sky looking down of what we're talking about. And this picture on the left, it's not an exact representation of what we have. This lane here, excuse me, this lane here is currently a center left turn lane. So we would be converting this setup to this one on the right with the center left turn lane right in the middle, 1 lane in each direction, and then the two paved shoulders on either side as well. So some additional benefits. So benefits continued. Generally, when we do these, and we've done them all over the state, really, and including in northern Michigan, we see what we call as traffic calming. That lead vehicle is controlling the speed of vehicles behind them. So in general, we generally see a downtick in travel speeds on the roadway, which for folks entering a town such as Mio is a good thing. It enhances safety. We see crash mitigations or crash reductions as a result of this. And in this case, I think we're being very proactive in that manner. So obviously with one lane in each direction instead of two, you reduce your side swipe opportunities. You actually reduce angle or T-bone type crashes, and I'll show you an example of how that works. And then because of the safe havens and the increased buffer space that you're creating for pedestrians and bicyclists, you actually reduce those crash types as well. It's easier to cross a 3-lane roadway than it is a 4-lane roadway for a pedestrian or a bicyclist, so that's another advantage. And then for folks that are turning either onto the road or turning left across another lane, that kind of thing, it's easier to judge your vehicle gaps when you're not having to look and judge at 2 lanes, for example, instead of 1. And I'll show a couple pictures of this. So this is what I mean by easier to judge your gaps. So the picture on the left shows a vehicle that's trying to turn left across 2 lanes of traffic. And then we've probably all seen this from time to time where this vehicle is coming and they see that this guy's trying to turn left, so they might slow down or stop so that they can, whereas the vehicle in this lane doesn't know what's happening and you end up with a crash. By converting the roadway to a 3-lane, that situation wouldn't occur. If this vehicle did happen to stop and wave this person across, there's not somebody coming on in another lane that could potentially hit them. Of course, that's not an operation we would encourage. This vehicle should continue through because they have the right of way. But this just depicts the sight visions that turning vehicles have and the improvements from doing a road diet or a lane conversion. Some non-benefits, there are a couple. So right turning movements, so the turning radius is improved, but in the southbound direction in particular, on a busy day, let's say if someone is turning right, a vehicle directly behind them would probably have to slow down a bit until they complete that movement. Whereas currently you could potentially pass that vehicle or get around them as they're trying to make that right turn. But again, it's a right turn. They're pretty unimpeded. And we think the inconvenience from that certainly doesn't outweigh all the benefits that we've described here. And then for that 4-block length there in the southbound direction, this lane conversion would take away the passing opportunities for town. But again, generally when folks are coming into a town such as Mio, we want them to drive a bit slower, to drive a little bit more carefully. So this is actually could be perceived as a benefit. I just wanted to go through a quick crash summary of the last 5 years on this stretch of roadway. So over the last 5 years, that stretch there from M72 up to a little north of 4th Street, the area that we're looking at converting, has seen 18 total crashes over the last 5 years. This isn't what I would call a significant number of crashes or a high number of crashes, but we have had 2 serious injuries resulting from that, which I do consider significant. And then if you compare that stretch to the south, or M72 south to 14th Street, where it's already a 3-lane section, that stretch has had 8 total crashes in the same time frame. So less than half of the stretch there in front of Family Fair and McDonald's, etc. And that stretch is also twice as long. So I think this really speaks to the effectiveness of a 3-lane section in reducing crashes and having an overall safer roadway. So I did want to highlight those 2 serious injury crashes that occurred. This is one of them, and this is directly from the police report describing the crash. Vehicle 1, so that would be this car here, was on 5th Street looking to head north on M33, and they essentially pulled out in front of a motorcycle, and the rider of the motorcycle was seriously injured as a result. Now, again, there are 2 southbound lanes currently. This vehicle here is having to judge not just 1 lane, but 2, potentially 3 or 4, actually 4 lanes because they're turning left. Whereas with the proposed lane conversion, they're not judging as many lanes. They're only looking at 1 lane in each direction. Much more likely that they're likely to see whatever vehicles are heading in their direction and who they need to wait for, or judging their gaps essentially. So this type of crash would be mitigated by the lane conversion. And then the other one was actually a pedestrian crash. This is 4th Street, so just south of 4th Street, we had a pedestrian who was pushing a stroller with a small child in it, was trying to cross the road from west to east, and made it about a little over halfway across the road when they were struck by a vehicle. The stroller was not struck, the person pushing it was struck, and so the person pushing the stroller was seriously injured. Again, and I go back to some previous slides, that crash would also be mitigated because a pedestrian is only potentially crossing 3 lanes of traffic versus 4. Again, less to judge, less opportunity for someone to make a mistake, results in a safer road. So obviously, anytime you do a lane conversion, the initial concern usually is, well, you're going to create a lot of congestion. You're taking away a through lane, so you're going to see a lot of backups. Well, this is I'm going to play a couple of videos here. The one on the left is a simulation of our current condition, and the one on the right here is a simulation of the proposed condition. And again, this is between 4th and 6th Streets. So the family fare is right here. McDonald's is right off the top of the screen, and it's quite apparent looking just at the simulations that the video on the right is very hard to decipher from the video on the left. It's clear we're not seeing significant congestion. We're not seeing stopped traffic or backups of any kind. And just so everyone knows, this is with traffic data from a weekday in July. So this is a relatively high time of year traffic that we are simulating. And even then, we're not seeing really any issue with congestion. So that's a positive sign. Also wanted to share just a simulation of the M72 intersection as well. So this is kind of at the south end of the lane conversion that we're proposing. Again, not seeing a whole lot of backups, and in fact, this intersection would not change at all. The only change that we would see is in the southbound direction approaching M72. Instead of this rightmost lane just ending at the intersection and vehicles being forced to turn if they're in that lane, they would be coming in one lane, and then this lane would open up. So a right turn lane would still be provided at the intersection. So the actual traffic signal timing and interaction of vehicles within the intersection should not change at all as a result of this. So again, another positive. And I'll just let this simulation play out. Great. And that concludes the presentation. I'm not sure if anyone has joined the meeting since I began talking, but if they have and we have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now. James or Monica, are there any questions in the queue to answer?
No, actually, at this point, we have no questions.
No questions. Okay. Well, for anyone that may be watching this after the fact, we certainly welcome any questions that you have after watching the video. And my email address is listed here on this slide, and I believe we're going to attach it or post it in the chat as well. And again, I'll state our TSC's phone number is 989-356-2231. So we're happy to take any questions anyone may have after the fact, and certainly appreciate you taking the time to listen to this presentation.
Okay. If there aren't any questions, I think we'll conclude the meeting. Right. Thanks for joining us.